It's me, Trina Kavanagh-Thomas, and I'm here for the social media switch off. I'm doing a live one today in our community with the lovely Lesley Wells, who's also a hub member, but she's also a collective member as well. So she's also part of our alternative personal training collective. So I've invited Lesley on today to actually talk to you about you are enough. You are enough. I'm trying to like look where the camera is, and I've got my microphone in front of me as well. It's like but Lesley has a wealth of information. She is a calming and transformational hypnotherapist. And you know what? You do like a plethora of things as well. So, you know, wonderful tools. She's got a massive toolkit that, you know, helps you alleviate yourself and live an amazing life. So I've invited Lesley on because she's just got a way of like talking to people that helps us kind of like get through and helps us get to the other side of things. So I'm going to hand it over to Lesley, and she's going to help you see that you are enough.
Thank you, Trina. So I wanted to come and talk about I am not enough, I am enough, because I'm coming at this from my own personal experience as well. I specialize my hypnotherapy in depression and anxiety because that's my background. And in my journey of exploring where my depression and anxiety has originated from, part of that is learning about accepting myself and that I am enough. Because we are taught, I think, when we're very young, possibly not intentionally, but it comes along anyway, that we compare ourselves to others. And when we compare ourselves to others, we allow ourselves to find ourselves lacking. And then that can lead to those feelings of just not being enough. And then that has its impact in other areas of our lives as well. And if you're in business like we are, that can lead to things like imposter syndrome and self-doubt and self-sabotage. And it just keeps dragging you down. And you find that you're just fighting against this tide all the time. It drains your energy and you haven't got enough left for what you really want to do and get out there and live. I know how bad it can get sometimes. I have been known to sit down with a piece of A4 lined paper and fill both sides with all of the things swinging around in my head in a particular moment. And I've written them down to get them out so then I can read them back to myself and think, what on earth is going on? Would I normally talk to myself like this? No. So where has all of this come from? And so as part of my working on myself, I went much deeper. Where has this come from? What do I recognize in these words in front of me? And it took quite a while, but eventually I started to recognize the voices in there. They included my mother's mother, my own mother, and my father. Now, my parents loved me, supported me, encouraged me. So they would never want to purposely hold me back. But parents try to protect you from potential harm. And in doing so, can instill feelings in you of pushing yourself and fear of pushing yourself just in case something goes wrong. And then, of course, that has its own implications for later in life. My mother's mother, however, was a completely different kettle of fish, and she was just not a very nice lady. And she was the one who really taught me how to compare myself to other people, because that's all she did with me. So I was never enough. So that stayed with me. And when I started recognizing where all this came from, right, now let's deal with this. Accept it for what it is. The first emotions I went through were blame. So it's your fault I'm like this. I hate you. But that didn't solve the problem. And I still had self-sabotage. I still had these feelings, I'm not enough. I had to stop blaming. I had to accept it, own it, take responsibility for it. It's happened. Somewhere along the line, my grandmother learned how to be like this from somebody else. So who do I want to blame? How far back can I take this? This is generational. Going so far back and coming back down to me that it's almost genetic. So I can't do the blame game. It's pointless. So I just have to say, okay, it happened to you. So it's happened to me.
Yeah.
But we can stop it now. This is it. It stops here. I understand why you've done what you've done. I own it. I've taken responsibility for it. Now I'm putting it where it belongs. I'm leaving it with you. You can pass it back through the generations now, Grandma. Together we can heal the generations and take away this feeling of not enough. Because now I understand that's how she felt in herself. She didn't know how else to behave. She passed that to my mother and so on. And that moment of understanding took my own beliefs about myself and my energies up a completely different level. So I now feel so much calmer and more comfortable within my skin. And I know that I am enough. And yes, there are still some times when I have little bits of self-doubt. We all do. But then I remember, I know where that's come from, right? Okay, put this back. And so when you're hearing those voices and they're going around in your head and they're telling you lots of awful things about yourself and, oh, look at that person there, they're miles ahead of you. Why aren't you like they are? And they're doing it so much better. First of all, you're looking at a facade. You're not looking at what's underneath. I probably look absolutely fantastic to some people around me. They don't know the story underneath. So to make a judgment based on what you're just seeing is a false register to begin with.
Absolutely.
So, okay, they look like they're further ahead than me. Also, how much longer have they been at this game than I have? Oh, they've got 20 years ahead of me. Well, in 20 years' time, I might look like they do. But this is where I am now. And I'm further ahead than I was 12 months ago. And that's how you build it. Just give yourself credit for where you are now and know that you are going to keep progressing. Stop comparing yourself because there is no comparison. There is only you. And you are enough. When you accept yourself as you are enough, you will stop chasing other things to fill the void that you're feeling. And sometimes people will chase after nice shiny things, a new car, new pair of shoes, pile of clothes, magazines, new house, whatever. But the satisfaction that comes from acquiring those things is temporary. Underneath it all, you're still feeling that lack, that gap, that emptiness. And it sort of came home to me a few days ago when, as the TV does, it plays the same films over and over on rotation. And a film came up the other night that I'd seen before, but I actually quite enjoy watching it purely because the psychological aspect of it. And it's called All the Money in the World. And the late Christopher Plummer played John Paul Getty, who in the last century was the richest man in the world. An oil magnate. He had huge houses and estates all over the world. He had more money than he could count, most of which he put into charitable trusts so he could escape paying tax. He lived off the interest and had very clever accountants making sure he never paid tax on that either. He surrounded himself with objets d'art, fine paintings, arts, everything. This man had so much wealth. And his director of security said to him, why do you have so much security? You've got cameras everywhere, you name it. He said, you've got all this money, all this wealth, all of these belongings. What would it take to make you feel safe? And he says, more. And earlier in the film, John Paul Getty explains to his director of security that when he was a kid, his father turned around to him and said, you'll never amount to anything because you're just a useless, no good son of a bitch. And so he resolved to prove his father wrong, which he did on the grandest scale possible. He proved him wrong, but he was still empty inside. And at the end of the film, the director of security turns around to him and says, you know, for all the wealth and all the money you've got, your father's like, you are still a miserable, noble son of a bitch. It's true. He had all of this and he was still an empty shell. So it starts from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Think of everything that's come to you. When you're hearing all that sabotage go in your head, you realize that it's not you, but you've taken it on board. So now it's time to give it back. Even say thank you. I said thank you to my grandmother. And that moment of saying thank you took all of that pain away. And it literally did. I just felt like I'd gone, woo. And it was a fantastic feeling. Rather than sitting there saying, it's your fault and I hate you, it's thank you. Because I understand now. And once I'd done that, that feeling of emptiness disappeared. So perhaps it's something that you can explore as well, deep within you, so that you can finally put to rest any feelings of self-sabotage, imposter syndrome, lacking, not being enough, because you are enough and you know you are enough. You just need to put the obstacles out of the way. So I hope that helps.
That is a massive help, massive help. What you're saying is, right. And not only that as well, we're born with safety anyway. And that's been proven in psychological science, that we're born into this world craving safety. And it's not that we actually go for food, it's that we actually go for comfort. The comfort that keeps us safe. But also, not only that as well, about John Paul Getty. I always wonder, because obviously he had so much, I always wonder what would have happened if he did actually work on it. And how he may have spent his money instead. Would he still have gone for the money? Or would he still gone for the money, but used his money in a different way? So there's lots of questions behind that that you could like literally blow open, because it's just, people can have money and then obviously do really great things with it. But as you said, you have to come back to knowing that you are enough. You are enough. And then obviously still, I truly believe that still striving for a little bit more, because there is something that is pulling you along as well. There's something that's pulling you out of where, because we spoke about this the other day, didn't we? Our comfort zone, pulling us off the precipice. There is something that's pulling us still along. And especially during this new age time that's coming through, I think we're being pulled along even more. So it's really vitally important that we always know that we're enough. And I think you've explained it beautifully, really beautifully. Thank you so much.
Welcome. I also think that part of our survival instinct is that stimulus. And that stimulus comes from seeking new experiences. And so sometimes that pull to jump off the precipice is that survival instinct for living. That stimulus that you need to live, to feel alive. Otherwise you stagnate. And so that might not necessarily come from that feeling of I have to prove something to myself because I'm not enough. That comes from possibly, I know I'm enough. Now I really need to get out there.
Absolutely.
I think that's the next development on from when you've actually got a handle on it. You think, right, I know who I am now. Here we go.
Exactly. And that, and that's so true. As soon as you know you are enough, you then start doing the things that you kind of stay back from. Usually it's almost like that. I think Ursula has said this before, Ursula Kelly, getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And then that you start to push yourself a little bit more forward, because you're like, I am enough to do X, Y, and Z now. Because sometimes that not being enough stops us from doing, I think you might agree with me on this, stops us from doing the things that we want, that we are supposed to be doing, so to speak. So yeah, this is beautiful. Thank you so much. Honestly,
Thank you.
as I said, it's just like having a wealth of information. And I do truly believe, I wonder if he would have been different if if he had done the stuff that's set now. And not only that, I also know that from a psychological perspective, and the science that's out there, is that up until a certain point of the 19th, and I think it was up to 1970s, I think it was, or something like that, children were being brought into this world under a different system of love and care, and it was more or less a non-emotional, detached set of rules, the way of looking after your own children, until they kind of realized, oh, that actually hurts human beings. And it hurts because they did it on an experiment on monkeys. I'm actually studying it at the moment, but they did an experiment on monkeys, and they actually found out that it damaged them socially more than anything. And that's when they started to change the rules on how to look after children.
Yeah,
So
and an interesting thing about John Paul Getty since that time, when he died, his son, who'd always lived in his shadow, who ended up falling prey to drink and drugs and virtually fried his own brain.
Wow.
And it was his grandson who was kidnapped, who lost his ear, unfortunately, or had it taken away, shall we say. There's a difference between losing it and having it taken away. Excuse me. And discovering that as far as his grandfather was concerned, he was only worth a lousy $5 million. And that's all he was prepared to pay to get him back. That when the grandfather died, when the old man died, the grandson, John Paul Getty III, just took all the property, all the estates, everything the man had amassed, and gave it away. Or sold it and then put it into a big charitable foundation for charitable purposes, to help other people. And now the family works towards the betterment of human beings. And it's unfortunate that the grandson also had his own demons to fight with drugs and drink, and he died when he was 49. So the old man, the father of John Paul Getty, started the ball rolling by telling his son that he just wasn't worth it. That then went down through 2 more generations until it got to the one who said, okay, this has lost me my ear. This has torn my family to pieces. This has caused so much damage. I don't want it. I can be happy without this. And he gave it all away. That was the end result. And the old man must have spun in his grave. But that's how the young man filled that hole in himself. Rather than keeping it, he gave it all away. And it just gave him that huge release. He no longer felt the prisoner of all that wealth.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's brilliant. Thank you so much for being on today. So,
thank you for inviting me.
So yeah, I'm gonna, if you can send me your links, Lesley, and I'll pop your links up so people can find you. So people can find you, and this will be uploaded for Friday's social media switch off. If you've not watched the social media switch off already, go find it on YouTube. If you search for me, Trina Kavanagh-Thomas, and you'll find me. And there's like there's a lot of great interviews on there. Some with Lesley as well, so there's some more on there with Lesley. So yeah, so go and find Lesley and go seek her out, because she is absolutely wonderful.